My name is Savannah St. Clair, and I am 18 years old. I drafted this letter to my 4-year-old self because I wanted to prepare her for the rough yet somehow exciting adventure she's about to go on for the next 14 years. Though life back then seemed carefree and innocent, it quickly took a turn that I wish I had more preparation for. Hey Savannah. Greetings from same old Stuart, Florida. I bet right now you're chasing your friends at the playground, not having a single care in the world. Oh, how I envy my younger self for feeling so happy and free. Now, at the time, life couldn't get any better. You had your friends, your favorite teacher, and most importantly, your dad. Every weekend, Dad would take us out of town in search of an adventure. Of course, you always had an absolute blast. You'd always be at your dad's car shop and greet all the customers, making them laugh every time. At the time, your uncles who worked at the shop were great to you and even taught you some life lessons. Sure, you weren't perfect, but you were just a kid living life to the fullest. Fast forward a couple years, it's the summer before 3rd grade, and the unexpected happens. It was a beautiful sunny day, and you had just gone out to get ice cream with your mom. When you got back home, you went straight to your dad, who was relaxing on his bed. You excitedly told him about the ice cream you got and ran back downstairs to play with your toys, just being your normal young self. God, how I wish I could just go back in time and lay next to my dad, embracing the peaceful moment. Just an hour after I went downstairs, the vibe shifted. My sister ran downstairs and grabbed my hand, rushing me outside and into the car. I was extremely confused and scared because nobody would tell me anything. I had no idea where my mom and dad were. All I knew was that something was very wrong and I just couldn't stop crying. After a few minutes passed, I could hear sirens from afar. I looked out the car window and saw an ambulance driving straight to our house. That's when my tiny heart dropped. When the group of paramedics went into the house, my sister finally told me. Something happened to Dad. He's going to the hospital for a little while. As a child, my brain couldn't process what was happening. Just an hour ago, I was playing with my dolls, waiting for my dad to wake up from his nap. Now I'm waiting for him to get carried into an ambulance? Since it was during summer, I was attending a camp at Pinewood Elementary, so that kept my racing mind occupied for most of the day. But when it was time to get picked up from camp, my first thought was, I hope Dad picks me up today. I would hope and pray for him to pick me up for weeks and weeks. Nevertheless, he never showed up. No matter how much I begged for his return, I always got the same response. Dad needs some more time to recover at the hospital. I even tried visiting him, but my mom wouldn't allow me to see him in such a state. I didn't know this at the time, but he was put in a coma after having a horrible heart attack at the house during his nap. On a random late night at the end of July, you were sitting in your living room with your siblings, waiting for your mom to get home. You suddenly heard the door open and didn't feel the warm and homey feeling you usually get when your mom came home. Instead, it was just sadness. Somehow, I knew instantly that my dad had died that night. My mom didn't have to say anything. I took one look at her and ran upstairs to his room, sobbing uncontrollably. My mom followed right behind me and tried to comfort me, but I closed my entire body off. I didn't want to talk or be near anyone at that moment. All I wanted was my dad, and I couldn't even get that. From that moment on, your brain is never the same, Savannah. You're no longer the cheerful kid that socialized with everyone. You became angry. You got into school fights every month and tried to make other kids angry because they needed to feel how you felt. It got slightly better as the years went by, but when you got into 6th grade, your brain went numb. You didn't quite know how to describe what you were feeling, but you knew it was bad. Instead of thinking about your dad, you distracted your mind with school in hopes that numb feeling would disappear. But it didn't. If anything, it got much, much stronger. Although you were once a joyful and extroverted kid, that came to an end in middle school. You turned into the quiet kid that sat by herself at lunch and wanted nothing to do with anyone. The only thing on your mind was good grades and choir. If you thought that was bad, you haven't even gotten to the worst of it. At the start of 7th grade, my dog, which was my best friend who kept me going, passed away. To make matters worse, my only friend moved away a day later. Towards the end of 8th grade, you had your 2 best friends. One cared too much, and one didn't care at all. When spring break came around, the outbreak of COVID-19 started. Since it was spreading so fast, the entire country had to go into quarantine, which resulted in me staying home for the next 6 months of my life. Every day I would wake up in the middle of the day, play video games, and go to sleep when the sun came up. I was constantly fighting with one of my best friends, who I later dropped because of the negative impact she had on my life. The one thing that got me through that period was my other best friend. She would put in the effort to bike to my house every weekend, and we always had the time of our lives. I finally got out of quarantine and started my first year of high school with my best friend at the time. We decided to try out theater to give us something to do after school. Turns out that was a great decision on my part. Sure, it was stressful, but it gave me a reason to be excited about something. I did theater every year of high school and even got to be a stage manager for a couple of the plays. Unfortunately, as life went on, I drifted away from my best friend and made new friends. One of the new friends became the best friend I have today. I really do appreciate her, but Savannah, you should know that this friend makes and breaks your life. She's the first person you're truly going to get attached to, and that comes with pros and cons. On one hand, she makes you feel the happiest you've been in a long time. But on the other hand, she can also make your mental health go rock bottom in an instant. I'm telling you this because you need to do what's best for you mentally. Recently, you took some time away from each other, which honestly really sucked. But I do think it was necessary. It gave you the time you needed to connect with other people and not be so codependent on your best friend. Now that we're friends again, we communicate better and I don't feel as dependent on her, making me feel more at ease. I want you to know that you're an incredibly strong fighter and I respect you so much. Even at your lowest point, you always found a way to turn your life around and get back on track. Your perseverance is what got you to the place you are today. Through thick and thin, you kept going, even when it felt impossible. Just remember, no matter how hard it gets, you'll always have the strength to keep going and become a better person. Your future self, Savannah St. Clair.